So when you were growing up, did your parents ever find you doing something wrong and say, "What in the world are you doing?" Well, think about it for just a second. What if we took that phrase that we remember that was used in a negative context, catching kids doing something wrong, and let's flip it around. Let's catch kids doing something right. Let's find kids doing things that are great and good and go, "What in the world are you doing?" Just to emphasize the fact that we need to constantly be thinking about how we can do things good. There are a lot of different ways we could actually say the phrase. We could put emphasis on different words to give it a different meaning. For example, we could say, "What in the world are you doing?" That way we're kind of emphasizing the fact that in this big world of ours, there's an awful lot of different kinds of things that we can do. We could also say, "What in the world are you doing?" We could make it personal. This month, we actually want to try to do that. We want to try to get kids to recognize they have a personal responsibility. And then we could even say, "What in the world are you doing?" There's actually an action involved in this idea of responsibility. The definition we use for the word responsibility is this: showing you can be trusted with what is expected of you. And we want kids over time to recognize they have an opportunity to demonstrate who God is to a world around them by the way they respond to that world. Think about the word responsibility. You see, we want children to not only understand how to respond to the ability that God's given them, but also how important it is to respond to God's ability to work through them to change the world around them. So your job as a parent or your job as a leader this month is very simple. We want you to teach them some principles about responsibility and then try to catch them doing it right, being responsible. And ask the question every time you see them doing what they're supposed to do, "What in the world are you doing?" It kind of all started at creation. If you think back to the beginning of the world, there was a moment, a defining moment in the story when God leaned down to mankind, to Adam and Eve, and reminded them that they were responsible to take care of the planet. So the question we're going to ask this month is simply this: what in the world are you doing to take care of what God has made? So that children actually look around at the planet and the earth that God has given them and recognize that they're stewards and that God has a responsibility for them to take an active part in being sure that they kind of are guardians of His creation. And the second week, we're going to ask the question a different way. We're going to add a different ending to it, and this is what we're going to ask: what in the world are you doing to use what God has given you? Remember the story Jesus told about the parable of the talents and how they were supposed to use the talents that God had given them to make a difference? Well, there's a principle the story ends with. If you think about it, it says if you're faithful in little, you'll be faithful in much. Remember, Jesus was trying to give us this principle of understanding how, because He's given us what He's given us, again, we're stewards of that, and we should use it in a very creative and a very wise way. So we want to teach kids how to be responsible for the world that God made, how to be responsible for what God has given them, and to also begin to understand their responsibility toward the people around them and how they have this ability to encourage, to build up. And so we're going to go to a passage in Ephesians, the 4th chapter, that talks about the power of our words and how we're responsible with what we say. Here's a little illustration. We use this in our family times kits all the time to help parents learn how to encourage their kids. Phrases that start off with "I'm really glad" or "I have noticed." Things that will help kids understand how important it is to be affirmed and to build each other up, so that maybe in their world, in their life, they'll understand how the power of their words can affect the friends around them. We're going to ask kids, what in the world are you doing to encourage others? And then we're also going to move to the last week and ask kids, what in the world are you doing to show others God's goodness? We're going to take them to the book of Matthew, when Jesus one day was talking about being the light of the world, and He said to an entire generation of people, "You're to let your light so shine before men that they can see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." As parents and leaders, we want our children to understand that they really do have influence, and that influence actually starts now, and that ultimately God has put them on this planet for a reason, and that reason is connected to how they show the people around them who God is. For an entire month, we're going to ask the question over and over and over again: what in the world are you doing? What in the world are you doing? It's the idea of responsibility. Not only responding to the ability that God has given me to take care of this earth and to use my talents and abilities and to be an influence and to take my words and to build others up, but as well to respond to the ability that God has to work through me to make a difference in the world around me. I've got one more thing I would like to ask those of you who are leaders and parents to do in preparation for this month. I want you to be responsible and go ahead and memorize the verse. I mean, if there's ever a verse to be responsible to memorize, it's this one. Here's what it says. Luke 16:10, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much.